news for you. Advent is over. It is. We all celebrated Christmas on Wednesday, remember? How many of you remember Wednesday? Okay. Most of you remember Wednesday. That's good. Mary doesn't seem to remember Wednesday. Oh. Okay. What that really means is since Advent's over, Christmas is done and over with. We're in the midst of 12 days of Christmas, though. I think this is 5 golden ring days today. So we could sing the 12 days of Christmas if Pam's got her guitar ready. You know, the thing I noticed yesterday is football is back. College, pro, just about anything you want, you can find it. I think there's 47 minor bowl games today. I don't know how many there are, but you can watch bowl games all day long, probably. So Christmas has come, and Christmas is going. We actually have one more Sunday in the celebration of Christmas. You know, we've been talking about all of the gifts that God has given us, and next Sunday we're going to talk about the gifts we bring God. The gifts we bring Jesus. The gifts from our hearts. This final gift, you know, we've talked about hope and joy, the song, and last week love, and then Christmas Eve we talked about the actual gift of Jesus. All of those lead us to this gift. I did not do it. It's a gift. So watch this. Well, that didn't make it go away. So I'm just going to talk loud while Ryan solves the problem.
Yay, Ryan!
He's now under high pressure. You know, the shepherds... Oh, he found a button. It's slower. I can talk over this. So all of those first gifts bring to us this last gift. You know, a lot of times we celebrate Peace Sunday, the second Sunday in Advent, but I've always thought that that was way too early. Because the people that I'm around on the second Sunday of Advent are not peaceful. They're not. They're still going like this, trying to figure out what's going to happen. What present do I need to get? You know, I was talking with a friend yesterday. They were in their car. They celebrate their Christmas on their big family Christmas always on now. They've set a new tradition on the Sunday after Christmas. And that way all of the kids who are married and have in-laws can go off and do whatever they need to do with their in-laws, and yet there can still be one big family Christmas. It's really a brilliant plan. Works really well. She tells me, she says, it's not really as brilliant as it sounds, because all that means is I can put off buying the last 5 presents at least 2 more days. Yesterday she bought her final presents.
Might be on sale with it.
So, you know, all that peace stuff, all that gift shopping oftentimes isn't peaceful. Maybe it ought to be, but it's not. There are a lot of things about the Christmas story that aren't peaceful. Have you thought about that? Think about this story. Let's start with Mary. An angel of the Lord appeared to Mary and said, "Hail, favored one." Who knew, first of all, that angels spoke High King English? Yeah, who knew? And Mary said, "Oh, it's an angel, yay." No. She said, "Ah! Who are you?" are you? I mean, let's face it, how many of you, if you saw an angel, would go, hey, Gabriel, how are you? No. Everywhere in Scripture that an angel appears, the response from the angel has to be the same. And there's a reason for it. The angel said to Mary, fear not, Mary, for the Lord is with you. When the angel appeared to Joseph, Joseph had the same expression on his face, and the angel said, fear not. When the angel showed up in the wilderness to the shepherds were not, oh, it's an angel. No. Oh, no. What's happening? And the angel said, fear not. Again and again, when angels show up, they are met with fear. Because, quite frankly, most of us don't run into angels on a regular basis. At least not that we know. I'm pretty sure I would recognize Gabriel. And I think I'd be scared to death right off. Now, one of the things that I know is that if you are filled with fear, you aren't filled with peace. Can't be. Can't be. Hey, can we just turn off the sound system? Yeah. I think that'll be better. You guys can figure it out after church.
But not very.
Yeah. When we're filled with fear, we're not at peace. When we're filled with anxiety, we're not at peace. When we're filled with stuff, we're not at peace. You know, that's one of the things I've noticed about people who tend to be just slightly or more than slightly hoarders. I don't know if you notice or not, but they're not at peace. There's always one more thing to add. There's always one more thing to keep. There's one more thing. And when you suggest that they could make their life easier if they would pass on some of the stuff to someone else or something else or somewhere else, their anxiety level goes way up. There is no peace. The shepherds in the Christmas story, you know, sometimes they get a bad rap. Because we don't always talk real nice about the shepherds because they're shepherds. Now, what do we know about shepherds? What do shepherds do?
Tend sheep.
They tend sheep. They watch those sheep. Have you ever watched sheep? I encourage you to come out to Norton Road and spend an hour watching the 400 sheep in the field right there.
They walk right over there.
You know what they do?
Eat.
Not much. They eat. They nibble.
And they sleep.
Then they get tired and they sleep. Then they eat some more. It's not a great job. Because you can't really read a book, because if you start reading a book, then the wolf's going to come. Or the fox. Or, you know, something bad's going to happen. One of those sheep are going to wander off. Now around here, that's okay. They can wander anywhere they want within the 30-acre field. And if they get just off that 30-acre field, the electric fence zaps them back into the field. It's better than a sheepdog. Yesterday I was driving down the road and I saw a sight I had never seen before in my little sheep field. They had a sheepdog.
Whoa.
He was laying down on the job taking a nap. He's in a field with a fence. Those sheep aren't going anywhere. If you're the shepherd, it's not a very good job. It's also a job that's in Jesus' day was a lot dirtier than it is now, I think. You were way down the totem pole of the social calendars. You weren't invited to all the social parties. You smelled bad most of the time because you stayed outside in the rain with the sheep. Do you know what rain and sheep do added together? Stink. And if you're the tinder, you stink too. You don't get invited to parties. You know, those are things we say about these shepherds, and we know that they're all kind of true, but it's kind of a bad rap. Because if you go back and look at Scripture, one of the things you find out is that shepherds were important. Do you know how many of the great people in Israel's history were shepherds? How about the single most important one of all, King David? What was he? He was a shepherd. Oh, yeah, but he was King David. Well, he was not a king when he was a shepherd, let me tell you. In fact, he was the last son, you know, of the last family, and I mean, he was about as far down the totem pole socially as you could be. I guarantee you that he smelled bad most of the time. It didn't matter. He was outside all the time. And God made him king. Were they at peace? Well, those shepherds weren't at peace when that angel came that first time. When that angel came making an announcement that there was a new Savior, there was a new King, I think the shepherds were doing this. Why are they telling us? What difference does it make if we get a new king? What difference is it going to make? We pay our taxes to whoever the king is. It doesn't really matter. Until, of course, they quote Isaiah chapter 9, saying, this is the one who's going to set us free, who's going to be the wonderful counselor, mighty God, Prince of Peace. Then they got excited. And then the angel says, and this is the sign, you'll find him laying in a manger in Bethlehem, wrapped up in swaddling clothes. And then there was a glorious host of angels. See, there was one, and then there was a host. I don't know how many's in a host, but enough to sing angels we have heard on high. Really, really, really well. All the high notes. All the low notes. All the notes in between. Those angels sang. And the shepherds reveled in the presence of those angels. And the shepherds said, when the show was over, let's go check this thing out. Let's leave the sheep here and go see the baby in the manger. They made a big risk. They left the sheep unguarded, untended, to see the Prince of Peace. Why? Because they were holding out for peace. Their life was not very peaceful. Their life was not very joy-filled. Their life was not very filled with love. It was about watching sheep, being under the command of other people. But the angel's message is really important. The angel's message is that peace is not a thing. Peace is not an idea. Peace is not really a feeling. This is where it gets kind of complicated. So turn your listening ears back on, because this is about peace. And this is what the shepherds are telling us here. The shepherds are telling us that peace is a person. Remember that quote from Isaiah chapter 9? Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace. Now John, he puts it this way. He quotes Jesus. He says, and Jesus is telling his disciples when he's getting ready to leave them to go be crucified. He says, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. For I am with you. You see, peace isn't given as the world gives. The world wants to make peace by putting in aisles and having one side over here and one side over here. And peace is when we can reach across the aisle and hold hands like this. Because we're not hurting him. But that's not peace. Peace is a person. Peace is Jesus as in the Prince of Peace. His assurance to his disciples was that even in what would appear to be the most hopeless of situations, he's ready to be crucified, he's going to be arrested, he's going to be beaten, even in the midst of that, he would be with them. He would be with them. And you can't be with them without being with them. Paul made it really simple when he said in Ephesians 2, he says, for Jesus himself is our peace. You see, Paul understood that because it was how all of the storms of life were calmed. How many of you ever have storms in your life? You know, things happen. You know, I always like the story in Mark chapter 4. They're in a boat. They're in the midst of a storm. Jesus and the disciples. I love it in Mark's gospel because Mark's gospel tells us that Jesus is asleep in the boat in the midst of the storm. The storm is raging. So, you know, I mean, you all could be the storm with me and go, and there's wind and there's rain and there's thunder and lightning. And, are you seasick yet? I mean, and Jesus is over here sleeping. Jesus is sleeping through the storm, and the disciples, they're getting worried. The boat is taking on water. That's the only reason I can think that they're worried. The boat is taking on water. It's going up one wave and down the other, and whoosh, whoosh. And the water was pounding over the top of the boat, and they were afraid.
Jesus in the boat.
And finally, somebody gets smart enough to look around for Jesus. Where are you, Jesus? He's in the back. His head's on a pillow. That's what it says. With his head on a pillow in the back of the boat, Jesus is asleep. Y'all are going to go read chapter 4 of Mark's Gospel, aren't you? It'd be a good thing. It's a great story. It's a great storm. The waves are pounding. The boat is capsizing. And Jesus is asleep. They wake him up. Lord! And they had to yell because, have you ever been in a storm at sea? They're noisy. Lord! Don't you care that we're about to die? That's what they said. Don't you care? Now, how would you like to be Jesus? You're sleeping. You're having the best night of rest you've had in months. Go back and read. It's true. Jesus doesn't sleep much. There he is in the boat, sleeping, sawing logs, probably snoring. They wake him up. Don't you even care, Jesus? Now this is after he's fed them, after he's saved them, after he's healed them, after he's got them all together. Don't you care, Jesus? I think the disciples were a little bit needy. Honest, I do. I really think they are. And he gets up and he looks at them. And then he looks at the storm. And then I think he looks back at them. Don't I care? And I'm thinking he's looking at Peter, the seasoned fisherman. James and John, his fishing partners, Andrew. And he's going, are you kidding? You woke me up for this? And see, we think there are lots of things that Jesus is going to say or do. We think that he is going to do an anti-rain dance, or an anti-storm dance, or a rant, or a rave. So y'all get ready, because I'm going to show you what Jesus did. Y'all ready? So he's standing in the back of the boat. He's watching the storm. He's got the sway down. It's, I think it's just a parent's sway, grandparent's sway. The boat's going this way. The wind is blowing. Turns around and looks at those disciples again. Okay. Peace. Peace. Be still. And the wind and the rain and the waves stop. One word. Peace. Now I know that some of you are thinking, so how do we get it? Because, honest, I'm looking out here at the crowd and some of you aren't at peace. Lots of reasons. It's really easy. The disciples, in their panic, had forgotten. They cried out, just like sometimes we cry out. Don't you care, Jesus? I know some of us in this room have said that to God. Don't you care, Jesus? But the reality is, Jesus was there. He's always there. God is there. God with us. Oh, there's that theme for the last 40 days. Always present. And I want to tell you a secret, and you're going to want to write this down or watch it on the video later so you can get this quote right, because it's really good. The power of God's peace isn't diminished by the size of our storms. The power of God's peace isn't diminished by the size of our storms. We can have the storm of a lifetime, and God's there. We can have a little storm over here, and God is there. We can be here, and God is there. All because we're in relationship with Him. How do we get this peace? We talk to Jesus. Ryan gave you that second verse or third verse of what a friend we have in Jesus. Talk to Jesus. Give thanks to Jesus. You want to stop some of the storms in your life? Become more grateful. Look for Him in every situation. Do you wake up looking for Jesus? Do you go to work looking for Jesus? Do you look at your spouse or children or grandchildren or third cousins twice removed and look for Jesus? Do you look for him in every situation? A babe in a manger, with the passing of a loved one, in the midst of the storms. You see, I don't know when Jesus told the sea to be still that anything really changed, except what the disciples saw. Because they saw Jesus. Now, there's one other thing I'm going to tell you. It's like every other gift that we've seen from God this season. Hope, joy, a song, love, and even Jesus on Christmas Eve. All of the gifts of Christmas have to be first received. We can't leave them under the tree. We can't leave them on the altar. We can't leave them for someone else to open. When we receive the gift, then peace will be yours.